in a few hours. Looks like everyone upped and left in the night. Strange. I've got goosebumps all of a sudden, despite the heat. I'm getting something of a horrible feeling here. I'd better get a move on so I can reach the Lake Bosumtwi camp before nightfall. Hey, Dixie. Now what would those Southerners say if they knew there was a mobile toilet named after their hymn? I should maybe give it a test. Sits around all day. Probably shows up for food and fondling. Men. Airport terminal, Africa style. A little bit too rustic for my taste. Where's the air-conditioned bar and duty-free shop? Hell, they've seen better days. Now then, any juice left in these at all? Looks like a reliable enough contraption. It clamps two ropes together. Crates of provisions. Well, I'm not gonna starve to death here, that's for sure. I'm not that hungry yet. The camp lies northeast from here. That's where we want to be headed. Where's that perverse stink coming from? Oh, right. Pumbaa. They may be cute in cartoon form, but in the real world, those warthog tusks should not be underestimated. Okay, away we go. Sing Hakuna Matata for me, then! Since we don't know each other all that well, I'm gonna be keeping my distance, okay?
Come, gather round, and have the piss taken out of you by a crazy lady with a megaphone.
Oh, I like it. Great. He seems to be quite unaffected. I guess that act's only good for scaring off lectures in bars. And here's me thinking I had the act down pat. I suppose compared to most men, this pig is smart enough to tell the real thing from the crazy lady making cat noises in the jungle. The craft of writing my ass. A voice recorder gets a more natural interview every time. Just two admittedly unfortunate words. Cat allergy. Hello, Mr. Kitty. How about an interview? Thank you for the profound discussion. I'll hold the megaphone close to the voice recorder speaker. Perhaps the pig's got a cat allergy as well. Pity. Apparently not. Now I'll put the used batteries into the voice recorder. Listen, who's that speaking? Sounds really grisly. Perhaps the pig's got a cat allergy as well. Success. I don't need a walking stick quite yet, but hey, you never know. Straight and long. Could be useful. Ants. I must have scared him up. Just like in the adventure movies. So, what do we have? Great. The guide rope on the right-hand side of the bridge is broken. That's all I need. I can't get across with it like that. I need to repair the rope first. A prime example of a professional bodge job. It's really quite miraculous that this has stood here as long as it has. Unfortunately, I can't do much here with just my bare hands, other than strangle people with dumb ideas. There's a tool bag hanging down there. I hope nobody left it there when they took the express route to the bottom. The bag's hanging too low. I can't reach it. It's certainly seen better days. Large scratches torn into the wood. Must have been something considerably bigger than the cat over there. Yarr! Sorry. It's screwed tightly to the column. The pocket knife only has this one blade, but it's extremely versatile. I can unscrew screws with it, for example. If I'm going to attach the hook to the branch, I'm going to need something more substantial than my iron will. Not a multifunction tool, just a simple pocket knife without the gimmicks. I'll pull out a thread. In fact, this cap is such a waste of space, I'll throw the rest away. This is where my exceptional capabilities in the tying of seaman's knots come into play. And to what should I now tie the hook? One long hook thing coming right up. Almost as long and sturdy as a proper boat hook. Come to mama. Well, what have we got here then? Looks like a wrench. And in fact, is a wrench. A very soft pencil. A 7B. A typical pocket tape measure. The wrench fits. Now, let's just hope the mast doesn't fall when I remove the connector. How about that? Rope connector gone, mast still standing. A woman needs a little luck sometimes. Let's see. This can't be all that difficult. That ought to hold. Whoa, what a mess. Who did this? Hello? Professor Hartman? Strange. No one here. What the hell happened? I ought to take a look around. There's a fireplace here, but it's stone cold. It's a motion sensor. Won't be attracting much interest on the local real estate market. Trespassing here is not prohibited, just impossible. Interesting storage method. That's how you keep your grub away from the hungry fauna. This winch holds the crate hanging from the cable. It's like the hut was cleaned out by a tornado. That tipped-over locker seems to be the only thing that hasn't been smashed or squashed. I'll pass. My delicate little fingers are not going in there just yet. The floorboards look pretty rotten. You want me to get a wood splinter? Even if the floorboards look rotten, we need something a little more heavy-duty than a manicured fingernail. A pipe. That's all I have to say about that. The wrench fits inside the pipe. The laws of leverage are your friends. My favorite occupation, plundering. Mostly fruit and veg. I'll leave that here and take everything else. A small metal key. Aha! It fits. A laptop for outdoor use. Fully ruggedized. Well, it survived whatever hit the hut completely unscathed. The professor received this letter from his wife on their wedding anniversary. Turns out married, middle-aged people have very little of interest to say to one another. A genuine sun trap. These rocks are getting hot in the sun. The mobile solar charger has to be assembled before it can be used. Bearing in mind I don't like puzzles, I've rather nailed that one, haven't I? I'll connect the solar charger to the laptop. I'll put the laptop and the solar charger here in the sun. Ugh, the laptop's protected by a code. A strip of adhesive tape. It's stuck pretty fast. I need something to scrape it off. Might leave a scratch, but the ends justify the means. Is that just the manufacturer's logo? It looks like wedding bands or something. Ugh, the laptop's protected by a code. Looks like some kind of diary. Sounds promising. Viruses that are responsible for evolutionary leaps? That story would be an absolute scoop. Now, is there any truth to these ghost stories? Shit. Looks like it's quite possible they're close by here. I need to be careful. At least I now know where I can find the professor. Only now all that's missing is any clue to where this Christian mission is. No saved mail. And if I was going to send or receive any, then I'd also need an internet connection. This is where Hartman saved the pictorial info from the current expedition. A map of the region to the south of the Bosumtwi. Aha! That over there to the west has to be the mission that Hartman wrote about in his notes. Even the most ambitious scientist has to switch off every now and then. Can't wait to see what kind of music the prof's into. No forecast without the internet. And I don't need a laptop to see how the weather is right now. I'll set up the motion sensors and build a nice big fire to keep the beasties at bay. That'll have to wait until tomorrow. I ought to get all the nighttime preparations done first. A decent campfire and a set of functioning motion sensors should mean I can sleep in peace. The perfect place. A genuine sun trap. I'll set up the motion sensors and build a nice big fire to keep the beasties at bay. On the sensor it says, working range 90 degrees. This sensor has a working range of 120 degrees. The working range of this sensor is 160 degrees. A sensor with a working range of 90 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. I'll set up the motion sensors and build a nice big fire to keep the beasties at bay. The working range of this sensor is 160 degrees. This sensor has a working range of 75 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. This sensor has a working range of 120 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. Looks like the sensors are set up according to plan. There's a fireplace here, but it's stone cold. Despite my radiance, ash and stone are not going to burst into flame at my behest. Dry wood should burn well. Now, I ought to make a fire. It'll keep me safe tonight, from the cold and whatever else is out there. Let's get cozy. There. All done. Now I'm gonna get some shut-eye, and in the morning I'll head to the mission and track down this research team. What are they? Animals? Nasty. I need to scare them off somehow. This is getting really weird. Those red eyes. There must be more than a dozen of them out there. Perhaps I can find something to scare them off before they realize my fire isn't so scary after all. Like hell I will. I'm staying right by the fire. No mistake. The fire seems to be keeping the beasties at a distance, for now. But they're not being driven away by it. Not exactly the best of the best, but it can take a usable picture, and the flash is top-notch. Maybe it'll give them a fright. They're gone. Hopefully they're gonna stay gone, too. It won't be too long now until sunrise. What a night. I never got back to sleep. What were those things? Hey, maybe I caught them on camera. What the? In all the horror movies I've ever watched, I've never seen anything like this. It's a westerly direction to get to the mission. Professor, I'm on my way. The mission. At last. Hello? Anyone home?
God be praised, my child. What can I do for you?
My name is Samantha Peters. I'm looking for a group of scientists. Their leader is called Professor Hartman. According to the notes I found in their camp, they were headed here before they disappeared.
Yes, the men you're looking for arrived here yesterday.
Finally, I've caught up. Can you take me to them?
Unfortunately, that's not possible. They are in quarantine.
Quarantine?
They are very ill. They have high fevers and are unresponsive. Nobody is allowed near them until the doctor gets here. We want to avoid any possible spread of the disease.
Can't I at least have a brief talk with Professor Hartman? It really is very important.
The professor isn't here.
Not here? Where is he?
If I've understood the men correctly, they were attacked at night and the professor was taken away.
Damn it! Do you know who attacked them?
You have to go now, my child. It is not safe here when the darkness falls.
What aren't you telling me? What is it that you're so afraid of? I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on here.
Child, I just want to protect you. If I let you in, you could become infected, and outside you are not safe from the...
Yes, not safe from what? In the scientist's notes, it says that one of them was attacked by some animal species he didn't recognize before he became ill.
That was no animal.
Well, what was it then? For Christ's sakes! Oh, forgive me.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
Listen, sister. You will now talk, or else I will break the fifth commandment. Who ambushed the scientists and dragged off the professor?
They come from above. The trees.
Locals? Rebels? Hunters?
No, not humans.
Well, what then? Not animals? Not humans? Aliens, perhaps?
The Bosumtwi.
Bosumtwi? Never heard of him.
Ancient Ashanti legends tell of strange nighttime beings that lurk in wait for their victims among the boughs of the trees. They pluck unfortunate souls from the ground using their long, sharp claws, and then drag them off to their caves, where they then suck the blood from their victims' bodies.
So what does your boss have to say about your believing in such blasphemous scare stories?
Scare stories? When you have lived among the Ashanti as long as I have, there's very little that appears unbelievable.
Let's reel this conversation back in from the nether regions of God's asshole and stick to the facts. I shot this photo last night. This little freak was one of a whole group sitting in the trees above me. Might this be one of your Bosum?
Holy Maria, Mother of God, you can count your blessings that you are still alive, my child.
So these freaks really have schlepped off the professor then? Suppose it's true. Where would the Bosum take their victims?
Into their caves.
I got that bit. Where are they exactly?
My child, you really don't want to go there.
Yes, I do. There's one hell of a real scoop of a story there for sure. And I just might be able to save the professor while I'm at it. That is, as long as these things haven't sucked him dry already.
Then I really won't be able to stop you, my child. Wait here a moment. This will be a great help to you on your reckless undertaking. Take it.
What is it?
Some intense studies of the Bosum and Ashanti legends.
Thanks.
May the Lord watch over you.
This is where the notes begin. So there were already patients at the mission with the same symptoms as the scientists. So were these men under attack from the same creatures? Let's see. Here it is. The attackers came out of the trees and surrounded them. There had also been similar cases in the past. The locals call the attackers the Bosum. They're also supposed to be responsible for transmitting a virus. The old Ashanti shamans were able to control these mysterious beings and could protect themselves from the disease. The priest found himself in great danger on his quest for the antidote. The Bosum exist. Now it's gonna get interesting. Ugh, such a lot of text. The priest stumbled across one of these Bosum and followed him to a cave. The translation of the inscriptions at the cave entrance brought something astonishing to light. It detailed a description of a ritual which could protect against catching the Bosum disease, and which could also cure it. They carried out the ritual, and despite no ready explanations for how, it worked. These experiences really rocked Father Samuel's concept of the world. This is where it lists what you need for the ritual and how to carry it out. It's incredible. I suppose I have to accustom myself to the notion that the Bosum may not be pure fiction. The priest's very convincing. Unfortunately, he took his knowledge of the route to the cave to the grave with him. At least I now know how I can protect myself from the Bosum disease. When I find out where they're hiding, I still might be able to rescue the professor. Oh, a loose page has fallen out. It's blank. Looks like the Goethe plant. I'll pluck myself a blossom from it. Star lily. Very pretty. One blossom for my hair, one for the ritual, and one to stamp under my feet as an expression of rebellion. One blossom from the hyacinth is enough, according to the diary. A few stems of alyssum also need to go in the pot. I ought to concentrate on the plants I need, as listed in the diary. That has to be rose herb. I need a stock from it. Julius, 1767 to 1832. Here lie my mortal remains. I just wish they were yours. That's terrible. Sister Josephine, 1852 to 1904. Here rest her bones, and for the first time, alone. Cheeky. Billy, 1907 to 2006. Only the good die young. Either he had a low opinion of himself or a wicked sense of humor. On the gravestone it says, J.H.M. Excuse me for not standing up. Must have been a proper gentleman. Or a Groucho Marx fan. An empty clay bowl. Who left this here? Father Samuel's grave. Strange. No epitaph, no date of birth, no date when he died. Just the name. Oh, and 9 curious symbols chiseled into the stone. Looks like lines and trees. I may at times have let myself get talked into things. I also may have been incentivized by the odd payment. But grave desecration is definitely off the agenda. A clay bowl. We used to make things like this in school, but mine were never as nice as this one. That reminds me. What's a blonde doing when she's staring at an empty sheet of paper? According to my last boyfriend, she's reading her rights. Har bloody har. Great. That lets me transfer the symbols onto the paper.
The pencils had it. But I've now got perfect copies of the 9 symbols on Father Samuel's gravestone.
I've transferred the ornamentation from the gravestone onto the paper. Okay, I'll carefully cut out the different symbols. I can't exactly say I'm crazy about puzzles. A map. The route to the Bosumtwi's caves.
Father Samuel drew in the route to the Bosumtwi caves on this map.
The Bosumtwi's caves must be near here. Hopefully the professor's doing all right. The entrance to the caves, and no sign of the professor. I'd better go in and take a look. After carrying out the written instructions for Father Samuel's protection ritual, of course. I have absolutely no inclination to go catching hideous jungle monster disease. It's actually here. Weird. There are no birds, no animal calls. Even the bats seem to be frightened to make a rustle. I'm not superstitious, but why take an unnecessary risk? Without the protection ritual, not even 10 Bosum could get me into those caves. The pot's empty. Let's not get greedy. I've got the clay bowl already. I can't get at them with my bare hands. Lemonade. Sweet as shit and warm to boot. But even ice cold, it's not an option. If I want to avoid doing my figure some real harm. Well, okay, I'll take it with me. But be aware that this is non-alcoholic piss water. Holy shit. If a dead fish and a tramp had a baby and the baby threw up into a dog's mouth, the dog's end product would smell better than this toilet does. Even if I had to, I would not go in there. Let's decant this delicate brew. The lemonade's too thin to apply to a paintbrush. Home economics is for housewives. Boiling the lemonades produced a thick, sticky syrup. That should work. The lemonade is boiled down to a thick, sticky syrup. It's covered in syrup. It's covered in syrup. Gotcha. The ant stuck to the brush. Almost too easy. I had to give it a go with chopsticks. Gotcha. One more. A respectable kill. Peters, the big small game hunter. A limp sock. Reminds me of my ex. You know what? Enough of that. And in it goes. And in it goes. Much more practical. The diary doesn't instruct the char grilling of the ingredients before the recipe's complete. I'll check the first aid kit. Gauze bandages. Now all that's missing is someone to bind up. There's still a few painkillers left. Pure alcohol. So, that ought to be all the ingredients. Let's see what happens. Ugh, The way that stinks, just the smoke could keep pretty much anything away from me. It's actually here. Weird. There are no birds, no animal calls. Even the bats seem to be frightened to make a rustle. Whoa, was that one of those things? A mask with eyes, mouth, and some kind of war paint. Not the slightest trace of Prof. Hartman. Only more passages that lead deeper into the caves. Are the Bosum fans of masquerade balls? Looks different from the other rocks. What is it? It's like some kind of graphic novel. The story begins with a man choosing children from a large group. They follow him into a cave, and the door closes after them. The children continue to live there while the man teaches them to fight. The man also gives them food, and so the children gradually grow into men. But what is that? The children seem to change on the way. Their arms become longer, and they get great big fangs like predatory animals. Pretty gruesome. Looks like one of those weird lamps they sell in the Scandinavian furnishing store around the corner back home. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. Even more passages. Really does seem to be more extensive than I first thought. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. But was that an animal? Or a human? Or... Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. The door won't open. It's the end of the line. This mechanism with the 5 stone wheels would appear to open the door in this room. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. Done it. Professor! Those damn creatures. I wouldn't like to make myself any more obvious to the Bosum. I don't think the ritual protects me from being eaten alive. I have to drive the Bosum away to be able to get to the professor. Things are getting tight here. The battery's almost empty. Herr Professor! Professor Hartman, can you hear me? He's obviously in some considerable pain. I'm not going to be able to move him until those wounds are patched up and he's feeling better. Here, get these down, you prof. That should keep the blood off my clothes, and, broadly speaking, inside him. At least until I get him out of here. That will have to do until we get back to the mission. Don't worry, Professor. I'll get us out of here. Hey, Professor. You look considerably less shit than you did when I found you 2 days ago. Welcome back to the land of the living.
Thank you for the expressive compliment. The sisters have looked after us quite devotedly. And of course, my deepest thanks to you for your getting me out of there, Miss...
Peters. Sam Peters.
Ah, and you are the journalist. Please forgive me for setting off without you. But the situation left me with no other choice.
Forgiven and forgotten. If you give me the story as promised.
Of course.
So you have a few minutes for me then?
Take a long look at me. Do I look like I've got anything else planned? I'm just not entirely sure that I'll be able to give you all of the answers.
Let's find out.
You want to know what the Bosum are?
Spill it, Prof.
They are humans, I'm sure of that. Did you see the wall paintings in the caves?
Yeah.
The Ashanti were always a very secretive people, with an extraordinary bond with nature. As with all native peoples, their living space also forms the basis for their existence. They naturally defend it with every means at their disposal. At some point, the Ashanti shaman must have realized that they would not be able to defend their lands indefinitely from outsiders. They therefore trained up some quite exceptional warriors.
The ritual that's shown in the cave paintings.
Correct.
But those things don't appear to be human in any way. What happened?
Well, it happens that there is a particular species of snail, which is incidentally the reason we were here at Lake Bosumtwi in the first place.
Whose genome has changed through eating the algae brought here by the meteorite.
Yes, exactly. The algae may have been carrying a virus, which, over a relatively short period of time, triggers a rapid genetic mutation in a species. There are supporting cases. On the Indonesian island of Flores, they found the fossilized remains of a very small but adult human who was a genetic successor to Homo erectus. All evidence suggests this subspecies of dwarves evolved in only a few generations as a result of their isolated environment and in response to the narrow, low-ceilinged cave systems of the region.
An unbelievable evolutionary step.
Relative to conventional evolution, this process really did take place at the speed of light.
As with the Asambosum.
Possibly. Perhaps, as with the snail and the algae, the virus is the explanatory factor across all these examples.
How far does this go?
Perhaps the shaman knew that the algae possessed some form of mutational capability and raised his warriors on it. The terrifying result we've witnessed firsthand.
Then these warriors are designed with the sole purpose of keeping outsiders like us away.
That is my interpretation, yes.
And what about this disease they carry?
That, alas, is one of the questions I cannot currently answer. The Asambosum themselves appear to be immune to it. Perhaps it's a further defense mechanism.
Do you think that they killed anyone?
No, at least not directly. The evidence so far suggests they were designed to keep potential aggressors at bay, not to actively eliminate them.
So what now? As snail research goes, Professor, this story is more sensational than most.
That may well be the case.
But?
The shaman and the Ashanti have only been acting in the best interests of their people and in perceived self-defense.
And that justifies their turning children into monsters?
We don't have to approve morally, but does morality apply in the case of survival? Doesn't every nation do reprehensible things every day in the name of survival? Clearly, we are not the first Westerners to come here, and I doubt the intentions of all such visitors are as benign as our own. In this special case, I have to ask myself, even as a scientist, is knowing the answers more important than doing the right thing?
Answers are what we're paid for.
Then I hope never to see the day that we run out of questions. Do what you think is right.
So, I have to make a decision. Should I go ahead and publish the story? In retrospect, publishing the Asambosum story really wasn't such a good idea. At least, not for the Asambosum themselves. There was a gold rush. Scientists, journalists, tourists, even big game hunters. The military looked on and did nothing. The few game wardens were helpless. When mass demonstrations back in the West finally delivered human rights for the Asambosum, it was almost too late. But at least the last Asambosum had been freed from the clutches of unscrupulous zoo owners and show people. They've been moved to rehabilitation stations, where they're being prepared for their return to their original habitat. The Bosumtwi has been declared a World Heritage Site and Nature Reserve, monitored by an international protection force. Oh yes, and as for me, well, the story made me a small fortune, some amount of fame, and a not-so-small sailboat. In fact, a vast one. So, not such a bad ending after all.